They found a silver locket buried beneath the hanging tree in Copper Ridge, Arizona, in the spring of 1897. The ground had opened up after a flash flood, the kind that tears through desert canyons like God's own wrath, and there it was, half buried in mud and bone fragments. Inside, no photograph, just a lock of black hair tied with red thread, and a dried rose petal that looked fresh as the day it was picked. The engraving read, E.R., forever burning. Old man Garrett, who ran the saloon and remembered things most folks tried to forget, went pale as moonlight when he saw it. He whispered, "That belonged to Elias Rourke, the drifter who saved the devil's daughter." The marshal's deputy leaned closer. "Tell me." Garrett poured himself whiskey with shaking hands and looked out at the desert where the sun was dying red and violent. It happened in the winter of 1889, and son, what I'm about to tell you, that ain't a story. That's a scar this town still bleeds from.
Elias Rourke rode into Copper Ridge on a November night when the wind tasted like copper and ash. He was nobody special, just another drifter with a weathered hat, a colt peacemaker, and eyes that had seen too much sun and too little mercy. He tied his horse outside the Silver Moon Saloon and heard the screaming. 3 men, 1 woman, the alley behind the general store. The Grimshaw brothers, bandits notorious for robbing stagecoaches and worse, had cornered a young woman against the wall. She wore black, a dress too fine for a frontier town, with silver buttons that caught the lamplight. Her hair was long and dark as a starless sky. But it was her eyes that stopped Elias cold. Red. Not brown in the lamplight, not a trick of shadow. Red as blood under moonlight. "Walk away, stranger," the eldest Grimshaw snarled. "This ain't your business." Elias drew his pistol slow and easy. "The lady looks like she wants to leave. I'm just helping her find the door." 3 shots, 3 bodies. The echo rolled across the desert like thunder promising rain. Elias turned to the woman. Up close, she was breathtaking. Sharp features, full lips, skin like porcelain. But those eyes. "You hurt, ma'am?" She smiled. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it was the smile of something ancient wearing a young woman's face. "No," she said. Her voice was silk over broken glass. "But thank you, Cowboy." Not many men would have intervened. Not many men leave a lady to wolves. Even when the lady might be more dangerous than the wolves. She turned and walked into the darkness, her footsteps making no sound on the dusty street. "My name is Valentina, and you've just made the most dangerous decision of your life, Elias Rourke." He hadn't told her his name. And when he looked down at the Grimshaw brothers, he realized they weren't bleeding.
She came to him 3 nights later. Elias had rented a room above the saloon, a sparse place with a narrow bed and a window that looked out over the desert. He was cleaning his gun by candlelight when he felt the temperature drop. Valentina stood in the doorway. She hadn't knocked, hadn't made a sound. "You gonna shoot me, Cowboy?" "Depends. You gonna give me a reason?" She moved into the room like smoke. When she sat on the edge of his bed, the mattress didn't creak. "You know what I am," she said. Elias set his gun down. "I got suspicions, and yet you're not running. I'm tired of running." Outside, a coyote howled its lonesome song. The candle flickered between them like a dying heartbeat. "My father was a Spanish missionary. He came to Arizona in 1860 to convert the Apache. Instead, he fell in love with something older than God, a creature of the desert, born of blood and moonlight. My mother." She looked at her hands. "I'm half vampire. I can walk in daylight, but it burns.
I can eat food, but it tastes like ash. I can love," her voice caught, "but everyone I've ever loved has died." Elias reached out slowly, took her cold hand in his own. "I ain't afraid of dying." "You should be. My mother's clan, they hunt half-breeds like me, see us as abominations." Red tears slid down her porcelain cheeks. "They've killed 17 people who showed me kindness. They're coming for me, Elias. They always come." "Let 'em come. You'll die. We all die, darling. Question is whether we die for something worth dying for." She stared at him like he'd just spoken a language she'd forgotten existed. "You ever love someone so much it felt like a curse? In my world, it usually is." He squeezed her hand. "Maybe your world needs to meet mine, because where I come from, we don't run from curses, we break 'em." She kissed him then, desperate, hungry, gentle, all at once. And when she pulled away, her eyes were human brown, just for a moment. "You're a fool, Elias Rourke. Been called worse." They came on the night of the blood moon. 7 vampires, riding horses black as midnight, their eyes burning red in the darkness. Valentina's mother led 'em, Doña Marisol Escara, beautiful and terrible, with hair like spilled ink and a smile that had seduced missionaries and murdered children. "Valentina!" Her voice carried across the empty street. "Come out, daughter. Your games are finished." Elias stood in the street, hand resting on his coat. He'd melted down the church bells that morning, reforged 6 silver bullets under Reverend Mason's blessing. Valentina appeared beside him. "Leave them alone, Mother. This town has done nothing to you." "This town shelters you. That is sin enough." Marisol's eyes found Elias. "And this mortal. You've fallen in love again, haven't you? He taught me I'm more than what you made me. He taught you weakness." The vampires attacked. Elias fired, each silver bullet finding its mark. 3 down. 4. But they were too many. Too fast. Claws raked across his back. He fell, blood spreading across the dust like spilled paint. Valentina screamed, a sound that shattered windows 3 blocks away. Power erupted from her like a storm breaking. She tore through the remaining vampires with her bare hands, moving faster than lightning, born of blood and vengeance. Then she faced her mother. They collided in a blur of fury, through walls, across rooftops, centuries of pain and love and betrayal between them. Elias crawled to his knees. 1 bullet left. The vampire closing in on him wore her death in her smile. He turned the gun on himself. "Valentina!" he shouted. "If I die free." Time froze. Valentina looked at her foolish, brave, impossibly human cowboy and understood. Love wasn't a curse. Fear was. With a cry that echoed across the desert, she drove her hand into her own chest and ripped out the black heart that beat with stolen blood, her mother's gift, her vampire curse. The remaining vampires turned to ash. The curse broke like chains shattering. Marisol stumbled, mortal for the first time in 3 centuries. Elias's final bullet found her heart. Valentina collapsed beside him, her chest bleeding, her power fading, her eyes finally human. "You're dying," he gasped. "So are you. Was it worth it?" She smiled through bloody tears. "Every second." The sun began to rise over Copper Ridge. For the first time in her life, Valentina watched it without pain. They died as it crested the horizon, holding each other. Free. They buried 'em together in the cemetery on the hill. The headstone read, "Elias Rourke and Valentina Escara, forever burning, forever free." Old man Garrett told the story for years afterward, how the cowboy loved the devil's daughter, how she chose mortality over immortality, how they died free under a blood moon. On moonless nights, two riders are sometimes seen on the ridge above town, one in a weathered hat, one in a black dress, riding side by side into the desert. And in the cemetery, wildflowers grow on their grave year-round, red roses that smell like blood and hope. The deputy returned the silver locket to Garrett. Should we bury it with him? Garrett shook his head. No, keep it here. Let it remind folks that some men don't fear the dark. They walk right into it for love. They say love and death share the same trail under the western moon. Some rode for vengeance, some for blood, but a few rode for love that would never die. Elias Rourke saved the devil's daughter, and she saved him right back. Not from death, from a life lived half afraid. The desert remembers, the wind remembers, and somewhere beneath the blood moon they're still riding. This is Blood and Dust Chronicles. Subscribe for more stories written in blood, whispered by the wind. The wind howls, a coyote answers, the blood moon rises, fade to black.